Here. So today we're going to talk about customer-focused websites. And as Liz said, this is part of a series of classes. And these classes are sort of roughly shaped around the hierarchy of effects, which is a model of how marketing works. And the way marketing works is we need to take our potential customers through a series of conditions. We need to make them aware, give them a good image. We need to give them knowledge about how our services work. We need to motivate them, and we need to get them to try our services. So last time we talked about awareness and building a positive image for your service. And today we are going to move on to this box of knowledge. And specifically, we're going to talk about customer-focused websites and how we can use those to educate potential riders. Now, passenger information is a really important topic because it is the directions for using public transportation. And as such, it's not really just a marketing tool. It is a core element of our service, because without effective information that lets people know how to make a trip, how to schedule a trip, how to make a reservation, those buses running around, might as well be delivery vans, because if people don't know how to use them, they won't use them. The other thing about passenger information is that it is often the first component of the passenger experience. It's the first time that a person interacts with your system. And that means that it is a really fundamental marketing tool. And in fact, I think passenger information is so important that we're spending 2 of our 6 classes on it. Today, we're specifically going to talk about customer-focused websites. And then next month, we'll talk about printed passenger guides, signage, and other information tools. So if you don't get your questions answered today, they may be in next month's agenda. So let's begin by thinking a little bit about the new rider, the person who is just coming to transit. So first of all, what are new riders generally comparing you to when they think about using transit the first time? Well, the fact is, most of them are comparing you to either driving or getting a ride with somebody else. And the thing about driving is that it's pretty mindless. It doesn't require much pre-planning or thinking. You just kind of get in the car and go. On the other hand, using public transit requires thinking, it requires planning ahead, it requires knowing when things go and when they don't go. So there's a good bit more mental effort. So we've got our new rider. We know that driving is mindless and immediate, and therefore it is the default for most people, until it stops being the best option. And that might be because someone reaches adolescence. They don't want to have to get a ride with mom all the time. They lose the ability to drive. They have a new job or school they need to get to. Traffic congestion is getting worse and they're tired of sitting in it. They need to use their time better. Maybe the cost of gas goes up or the car breaks down. Maybe their usual ride's not available, or they're going somewhere unfamiliar where parking's not available. Maybe climate change happens and they decide they need to be part of the solution. Any of these things might be the inspiration, the motivation that gets someone to consider transit the first time. But what if they've never used transit before? They've never been on a bus. They've never looked at a schedule. What are they going to do? Where are they going to go for information? They're probably going to type transit into a search engine. Maybe they're going to go straight to your website or Google Maps or social media. Look for a printed guide, go to the bus stop. There's a lot of places people look. But in this day and age, by and large, most people are going to look for information online. They're going to type something into a search engine, or if they've seen your web address somewhere, they're going to go straight to your website. And either way, chances are your website is going to be the first experience that many riders will have with your transit system. And so it needs to be a good experience. So you need to do a number of things to make it a good experience. And the first of those is you need to make your website easy to find. And that means having a simple URL, something like xyztransit.org, as opposed to smallcity.state.gov/department/publicworks/public transit. I'm sure that at least 1 or 2 of you out there have a web address that sounds like that. Now, there are a couple of ways to get around having that web address. If you are part of a city website, you may not have an option to have a standalone website. If you do, it is better to have a standalone website. But even if you don't, You can buy a simpler URL that is your transit system's name, and you can simply point it to that more complicated URL. So you can make your system easier to find without somebody having to go to smallcity.state.gov and then click through a bunch of links to find you. Once you've done that, once you have that simpler URL, then you can put it on everything. You can put it on buses and bus stops and brochures and ads and all of the things that you do so that people have ready access to that information. The second thing you need to do is to make sure when they get to the website, it's easy to use. Clean design, clear navigation. We're going to spend a lot of time today talking about these elements and about how you can make them work for you. You want your website to make a good first impression. And that doesn't necessarily mean glitzy design and pictures, but it does mean that it's professional and clean and clear and positive. And the most important thing that you want your website to do is you want it to answer the potential riders' questions, because they're going to come there if they're looking to use transit with a very specific list of questions. Where can I go? How do I get there? When does it run? How do I make a reservation? Where do I catch it? How much does it cost? All of those things are going to be in their minds, and we need to make sure that the website answers those questions for them. So how do we go about creating a great transit website? Well, I want to begin with a couple of key truths about website design, and these kind of relate to that clear, clean design. The first of these is what I call above the scroll. And above the scroll is what an internet user sees when they come to your homepage without having to scroll or click on any links. This is your most valuable real estate. This is the first thing they're seeing. And so let's look at this website. Actually, I think this has been changed now. They've updated it. But, at first glance, you go, well, it's kind of professional looking and, not too bad. But when you look a little closer, you go, but does this have anything to do with transportation? Or maybe they're selling phones. Let's see, we got some frequently asked questions about demand Treasure Coast connector. What exactly does that mean? Finally, I get over here and I see a link that says need a ride. Maybe that starts to relate to what I want. But it takes a bit of searching to kind of figure out what I'm looking at here. It might be easier for the user if all of that was right there in front of them when they get to the web page. A map. Oh, well, these are the routes. This is where they go. Clear links that show exactly what they might want to find. Routes and schedules, fares, rider information. Oh, a trip planner. Maybe that'll help me figure out where I'm going. Clear, clean design that answers the rider's question is how we need to be using that above the scroll area. The second key truth of web design is that internet users don't read very much. People viewing websites scan, they don't read. And so you really want to minimize text and use visuals and clear links that convey information quickly. If I came to this website, while, it's perfectly nice and pretty enough and has a picture of a bus, it says a shared ride public transportation system, and then it gives me their mission statement. Well, at this point, I may have dozed off already, and I may not get down to any of this information below. It would be a lot easier if the information was laid out in a way so that all I had to do was glance over a few icons and headings and quickly get to where I needed to be. Oh, service maps and routes, that's what I want. Or a system map, or whatever it is that I'm looking for. It needs to be right there front and center in as few words as possible. Back to the people don't read. This is another example of a website that just has a few links, a few very clear links right on the homepage. But this is for demand response service. So we're not seeing maps, we're not seeing routes and schedules, we're seeing programs. And people have the choice of they can select the program link and shown exactly what services are available, or they can say plan a trip. Oh, I don't want to do that. Okay. Or they can say plan a trip and be taken to a little program finder where they can fill out some information and go directly to a page that shows them what they need to know about the service that'll get them where they need to go. So we want to make things as clear and easy for people as possible with simple navigation with few words. Now, the third key truth of web design is that most transit website users are on mobile devices. My transit host people tell me that in rural areas, about 65 to 75% of touches on transit websites are coming from mobile devices. It's much higher in urban areas. And that's because many young and low-income riders, they're smartphone dependent. That is their internet access. That is what they use for everything. So you need to ensure that your website is mobile responsive, that it works well on smartphones and tablets, as well as computers. And we're going to talk more about that later. So those are kind of just three key design truths that I want you to start out with. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the audience for your website, the folks that are going to come there, because a lot of different people are going to come to your website. Among those are going to be new riders. They're going to be looking for an introduction to the system, for where do you go? How do I get there? Route and schedule information, how to ride. All of that is what a new rider wants. But there's also going to be regular riders coming back, and they're just want easy, quick access to trip planning tools, to your schedules. They want to know if there's updates or anything that's changed. Maybe they want to purchase fare media, or they want to contact customer service. So those things need to be easy for them as well. But there are also going to be other folks that are coming to your website. There's going to be potential employees looking to be hired. At least you hope there are right now. There's going to be board members looking for meetings and agenda, media looking for news releases, community members that want to know about your policies and public participation, maybe business partners looking for RFPs or contracting opportunities. And those are all important audiences too. However, I would urge you that the primary focus of that homepage above the scroll should be on riders, new riders and regular riders. These are your bread and butter. This is what your website is for. So if you have an area like this that is above the scroll, when someone comes to your homepage, you can see this gives them a lot of information right off the bat. A map that shows them where they can go, a trip planner. There's links here for the different types of services, or if they want to buy passes or they want to know how to ride. Kind of everything that the new or existing rider needs is right here on this above the scroll area. Now, these other audiences, you still want to address them on the website, but they can be addressed below the scroll or from a menu. So for example, you just saw the top of the home page. If you scroll down from that same page, this is what you would get. And you would see that down here, we've got lots of other links. We've got more rider information, specifics like holidays and jury transportation, but we also have information that's relevant for board members, for employees that are looking for jobs. We've got RFPs for contractors. All of that is clearly presented on the homepage, but it's not cluttering up that top area. It's not taking away from the area that we really want to use to market our services to potential riders. Now, these are exceptional times, and this is an example from Richmond right now, where you can see they're breaking my rule by using a big part of their above the scroll homepage to recruit drivers. But like I said, these are exceptional times, and that is probably a very important message for them right now. But in normal times, we want to use that prime real estate to answer the riders and potential riders' questions. Those questions I posed earlier. Where can I go? How do I get there? And so on. And so I'm going to walk through these one by one and show you examples of how various systems have answered these questions on their website. Now, not every example I show you is going to be relevant to every kind of service or system, but I want you to think about the concept behind what I'm showing and how it does apply to your system. So let's start with where I can go on public transit. That is one of the most fundamental questions for someone who's never used transit before. You know, can I even get to the places I need to go? And there are a number of ways that we can answer that. Now, one way you could answer it is with words. You know, you could talk about the counties that you serve or the towns that you serve. But then we're back to that thing about people not reading very much, and words sometimes just make people glaze over. So maybe you could more easily answer that question with a map or a visual. This is a map that shows all of the towns that a particular rural transit system serves. And it is a clickable map. And what that means is that if I was in this website, I would be able to point at and click on any one of the routes on this map, and it would take me directly to the schedule and more information about that route. I can also click down here on the names of the routes. So a clickable system map is an easy way to show people where they can go and then get them quickly to information about the service that's relevant to them. This is another kind of interactive map. This is a Google Maps-based map, which is zoomable. And what that means is that, this time I am actually going to go into this map and show it to you, that if I am in this map, I have a couple of options. I can look at the whole system, you know, so I can see all the routes and where they go, and I can zoom in, you know, to get closer to where I am. Or I can decide, oh, I only want to look at this one particular route because it's the one that goes near my home. I can then just select that route and look at that route. And again, I can zoom in so I can see just how close this route gets to my origin or my destination, where the bus stop is, and all of get a lot of questions answered that I might have. Now, another thing that we can do on a map is we can show the interconnection between fixed route and demand response services, because I know a lot of you probably operate a mix of service modes. In this particular map, you can see that the local communities each have dial-a-ride areas, demand response areas, which are then connected by fixed routes that operate between the various communities. So this map allows people to see both, and if we were live online, it would be interactive as well. So I could click on an individual demand response service, or I could click on a route to get more information about that particular service. This is another example of a basic interactive route map for Bakersfield, California, and I could click on any of these routes to get information, but I can also switch from fixed route to dial-a-ride, clicking up here and get a map, an interactive map of all of the various dial-a-ride services that are operated in this very large county. And if I click on one of those, I would zoom in and could see the actual boundaries of that dial-a-ride area. And I know, you know, in many rural transit systems, that's a question that gets asked a lot. Well, exactly where can I go? Exactly what are the edges of the service area? Do I live in them? Is my destination in them? And this allows someone to answer that question pretty easily. This is another demand response map. This is from a somewhat more urban area where the dial-a-ride service operates within this blue zone, anywhere you want to go, but also makes trips out to various medical facilities. And if someone clicks on any of these little pin drops on the map, then the name pops up of that particular medical facility. So they can see that, in fact, they can get there on the Ready Now demand response service. So lots of different kinds of maps and lots of opportunities, but maps really are the quickest way to show someone where they can go on public transit. Just a few technical tips. Like I said, the clickable maps, they can be linked to routes schedules, or they can be linked to more detailed route maps for an individual route. So there's a lot of ways that you can use them. And you can use a static map and simply define areas on that map which form the link. You can also leverage your GTFS if you have GTFS data for your fixed route services, which link you to Google Maps. You can use that data to create those kind of zoomable maps that I was showing you. And you can repurpose artwork. So if you are creating maps for use in your printed guides, think about how you could maybe simplify those same maps to use them online so you get the most out of your development effort. So we've made it through one question. How do I get from here to there is generally the next question that somebody's going to have. And by far, the easiest way to answer that question is with a Google-powered trip planner. Asking someone to, use schedules and maybe coordinate different schedules to form a trip, that's a lot of work. But online, we don't have to do that. Online, we have the option of providing a trip planner. And if your information is already in Google Maps, if you've already provided the GTFS, then it's simply a matter of adding a Google-powered trip planner to your website, something where someone can enter their origin, enter their destination, say when they want to go, and it will take them to Google Maps and give them that detailed route plan that they need. Now, one of the great things about trip planners, aside from the fact that they don't require someone to read a schedule, is that they make it easy to plan trips across systems. And this is a great example of that. This is from Northwest Oregon, and there are 5 rural transit systems that serve this corner of Northwest Oregon. And they have teamed up to create one website that has all of their information on it. And this trip planner then allows you to plan trips that go across all of these systems. So if someone's coming from Portland and they want to go to Astoria and then they want to come further down the coast, it's seamless. They get the information, they get the links between the systems. Now, if you and your neighboring systems are both in Google Maps will automatically do that. You don't have to be on a common website or anything. It automatically makes those connections for you or for your users. Now, Google Trip Planners are, of course, only for fixed route services, although they are working on GTFS Flex, so that's a whole nother topic. But there is one way that we can provide similar utility for demand response services, and that is what I showed you earlier on the Pomona Valley website. So if I tell it I want to plan a trip, it gives me a little form to fill out. So I can say I'm older than 60, I'm disabled, and here's where I am, and here's where I'm going to. And then just using a very simple database, it doesn't come back with a detailed trip plan because that would be irrelevant for demand response, but it tells me which services I qualify for and which serve both my origin and my destination. And in this case, there's 3 different services a person can choose from that have, varying fares and hours and whatever. While program finders aren't, they do require some development effort, they are an option for being able to provide that kind of utility for demand response service. Just some technical tips. Most of you probably know what GTFS is. I've used it a few times. It means General Transit Feed Specification, and it is the way we define our routes, our stops, our schedules, and our fares, and even our real-time information so that it can be consumed by Google Maps and by other apps to provide trip planning information. It's what powers those Google Trip Planners that you see on websites. To add a trip planner to your website, if you are in Google Maps, I highly recommend having a trip planner as a central feature on your website. You can ask Google or your neighboring transit agency for code, and it's probably even something that National RTAP can help you with. But trip planners really do make using transit easier. They make it as easy as driving, as getting driving directions by answering that question, how do I get from here to there? So trip planners can be very simple like this, or they can be prettier and a little more complicated like this, just depending on your website. Demand response trip planners, as I mentioned, do require some development effort, but my friends at Trillium Transit tell me it's not too difficult. They're the ones that created that one for Pomona Valley. So the next question someone might have, particularly if they're going to be using the system over a period of time, is when and how often does it run? Not just how can I make this one trip, but how can I make trips over time? So one thing we always want to do is to make sure that we give the riders quick access to timetables for each route if you have fixed route services. In the case of the Northwest Connector, where they had 5 systems together, you click on a single link and you get a drop-down box that gives you the routes for all of those systems, and you can simply click on the one you want and go directly to that schedule. Once they get to that schedule, one thing that's important is that we provide schedules on our websites in HTML. That is, they are text on the screen. They're not a PDF or an image that has to be downloaded. The reason that that's important is because HTML is readable by screen readers. So if someone has a sight impairment and is using a screen reader, they'll be able to access it. They're also readable by search engines, and so they help people find your website in the first place. It is never a bad idea to also provide a PDF option for printing, so maybe a PDF they can download and print, but the central schedule on the website should be in HTML. Another thing to consider, particularly if you operate demand response services or a mix of services, is on your map showing frequency. This is particularly useful for systems that maybe only operate some routes or some services on certain days. In Calaveras County, they only operate this direct connect service on Thursdays. And so putting that on the map makes sure that people, don't look at it and go, oh, well, I can go there anytime. So having that kind of frequency information available right up front. In terms of demand response, when does it run? We need to clearly define service days and hours. What are the advanced reservation requirements? That's always a big one. If you've got that 24-hour advance reservation, you need to let people know. When reservations can be made. Is that a Monday through Friday thing? Is it only certain hours? Can they make them online? Does it have to be by calling? We need to make sure that's clear. What's the arrival window and what's the return trip policy? So sometimes we think, with demand response, oh, just give them the phone number to call. That's all they need. But the fact is there's a lot of information behind demand response service that helps people use it effectively. So the proverbial question, does the system run on time? Do the buses run on time? Real-time information is sort of the holy grail of transit. And if you have AVL on your vehicles, having that information offered on your website is a huge advantage. And this is a website from Juneau, Alaska. And you can see that you have the option of looking at a trip planner or toggling over and getting real-time arrival information. So the new rider or the person who doesn't quite know how to get where they're going might want to use the trip planner. But the regular rider who knows where they're going and just wants to know when the bus is exactly going to be there would probably look at the real-time arrivals, would put in their bus stop and would get that information right there. Another way of displaying real-time information on a website, of course, is on a map where you can actually see the vehicles moving along on a Google map, on an interactive map. And many vendor apps which provide real-time information can also be integrated into your website. This particular one is Route Match, and you can see that it's just toggles from the website directly to their map. If you are operating demand response service and have an app that allows people to see when the vehicle is going to get there, or a call ahead function that lets them know when the vehicle is on its way, I would say by all means include that information on your website. That is a big security blanket for people using demand response. So the next question someone might have is, where do I catch it? How do I get, where's the bus stop? How do I know where to hook up with the bus? The trip planners are great for that. Once somebody's into a Google trip plan, they can zoom right in on the map and see exactly where that bus stop is. And that makes it easy for them to figure that out. Zoomable maps are another option. The zoomable maps that I showed you on various websites, as I showed you before, you can zoom in and you can see just where the bus stop is. So easy to find it. Static maps, if you're using, if you don't have zoomable maps, but you're using static maps on your website, you can still show where the websites are on them. It's still a good thing to do, but the zoomable maps and the clickable maps definitely make it a lot easier. How much does it cost? How much is it going to cost me to ride this transit system? Well, sometimes fares are simple to communicate. Bus fare is $1.50 all day unlimited pass, $4, half fares for seniors. Sometimes that's all we need to communicate. But a lot of times in rural systems, that is not the case. We have zone-based or origin-destination-based fares, and we need people to read these big, complicated fare charts that somehow always manage to confuse them. But online, again, gives us an option to simplify that process. We can create a fare calculator that reads the chart for them. So someone puts in where they're starting from, where they're ending, hits calculate fare, and it pops right up and tells them that the fare for that particular trip is $1.50 or 75 cents for a reduced fare. This is another example of a fare calculator. This one is from Kenai, Alaska, where they operate demand response service over a very large geographic area. And you can see there's all these zones, and every zone is, what zone you're going from and you're going to determines your fare. So rather than have to count how many zones you're going to pass through, you simply click the zone you're starting in, the zone you're ending in, and it tells you right down here what the fare is going to be for that particular trip. So anything we can do, if we can use technology to answer our riders' questions in the easiest way possible, that's what we want to do with our website. That's our objective. So even if your fares aren't that complicated, you still need to think about presenting them in a way that makes it easy for people to compare their options. So, what's a one-way fare versus a day pass versus a monthly pass, and so on. Present things in a clear, easy to read fashion, again, that minimizes the number of words that somebody needs to read. Images, tables, things like that that read quickly, for the most part, are more engaging to riders. Now, if you do operate fixed route service and you are in Google Maps, if you have GTFS, include your fares in your GTFS. That is one of the fields that you can include. And then when someone does a trip plan, the fare will pop up right at the bottom of the trip plan. And that's even true if they're going to use, your service and then transfer to another service. It'll show what the combined fare is for the two, so they can know how much money they need to have. Other things that we might want to make sure we communicate on our websites, pass sales. Providing online pass sales makes it easy for people to access your monthly or weekly passes, or if you have punch passes, if they're able to order them, that's a real plus. Even if they can't order them online, just making sure that you let them know where the pass sales locations are, giving them, the addresses, the times that they're open, so on, so that they can easily access the passes. And then finally, if you offer mobile ticketing, if you're using Token Transit as Rabbit Transit is, or some other mobile ticketing platform, including that information on your website, including a link to the app so that people can download it easily. And then the final question that I added to the list is, what's different due to the pandemic? Right now, that's something that we're all asking every day. And so, reminding people that the mask mandate is still in effect, and that we're practicing various practices to make, that was bad English, that we're practicing various standards to make sure that it is safe for people to use transit. Might be having a click through to more information about what you're doing, about your cleaning protocols and so on. But right now, what I'm seeing many systems using this space for is to let people know about service disruptions, because so many systems are short of drivers due to COVID or just due to being short-staffed, and are having to make adjustments in their service. And so, this becomes an important function for your website, is letting riders know if something is not as it normally would be. So those are the questions that riders have, the big questions that riders have. Now, there are a lot of other little things that some riders need, or that riders need sometimes. They need to know about accessibility, about whether your vehicles are wheelchair accessible. They need to know about whether or not they can bring their bike with them, some riders, or maybe if there's a park and ride opportunity. They need to know about connecting service, holiday schedules. All of those are things that can be linked from a menu. So if we have, our basic links, our basic information above the fold, maybe we have a how to ride link and it drops down and gives people a lot of other options they can choose from for those kinds of information that not everybody needs. It's not, not the first question you ask, but at some point someone is going to need to know. Then there's the below the scroll area. Then there's all those other audiences that aren't potential riders, but that we have a reason to want to interact with. That information can be delivered, as I said before, not at the top of the page, but below the scroll at the bottom of your home page. And it might be presented something like this, civil rights program, reasonable modifications, lost and found, public records, board meetings, procurement, employment, all of those other things that people might want to know, as well as detailed contact information. If somebody wants to submit a complaint or a compliment or ask a question online, all of that information should be on the home page. It simply should not be cluttering up the top of the home page, which you're using as a promotional tool. Okay, some more technical stuff now. I've shown you what should be on the website. Let's talk a little bit about creating a website. This is the hard part. There are a number of considerations that you need to think about. Expense, how much money do you have to spend? How much development expertise do you have on staff? And how much time, to be honest, do you have to work on it? How often do you update your website? How easy do you need it to be to update? And then there's an issue called portability, and that means the ability to take your website from one developer or one host to another, and not being locked into a contractor. So there are really three big sets of options that I'm going to talk about. And the first of these is the National RTAP Web Builder. And I think at this point, Liz is going to put a link to that in the chat box. National RTAP offers an excellent web building program that is free, that is supported by RTAP staff, and that has transit-specific tools. So if you don't have much cash and you do have a little bit of time to work on design yourself, this is a great way to create a nice, professional, effective website for your system. No money required, but does require a little bit of time and effort on your part. The second option is a proprietary or commercial platform, such as Squarespace or Wix. These are dependable and versatile for active editing. They have a lot of tools. You can do a lot with them, but they are proprietary systems. So you are kind of locking yourself in to a contractor. Most of them do have a free or a low-cost subscription option. So if you don't want a whole lot of bells and whistles, you may be able to do it pretty inexpensively. They do require work to implement, but you just might have someone on your staff who has specific experience working with one of these, and that might be a reason that you would want to go that route. The third option that I'd recommend is an open source contracted website using open source software such as WordPress. There are a few other options too, like Drupal, but WordPress is the most common one. It's the one that most websites are built on. It allows you to have a custom website tailored entirely to your agency's needs. But it is not free. You're probably going to need to work with a web developer, and depending on the complexity of the site, you're going to need somewhere between $5,000 and $250,000. Now, most of you are going to be on the lower end of that spectrum, so don't have a heart attack at this point. I would say most systems, for $20,000 can develop a very nice website. This does allow for custom professional design. It allows for custom back-end management tools, which means that you can use your GTFS to update schedules and things like that, which makes updating easier. It is open source, so your in-house staff can be trained to do updates, not to completely redesign the website probably, but to add news items, to change schedules, to change text, and so on. Oops. And it's fully portable because it is open source software. If you work with one developer to create the website and you decide later on, you'd rather work with somebody different, no problem. You can take your website somewhere else because it's open source software. It is not tied to a particular vendor. So that is a plus. So if you're looking for a nice, simple way to build a website without much money, National RTAP Web Builder is definitely a plus. If you're looking for something a little more sophisticated, I would probably, unless you have a real reason to want to go with Squarespace or Wix, I would probably recommend going with something like WordPress and hiring a contractor to work with you to develop the site. A couple things to keep in mind as you're developing your site. This is a big one. Plan for usability for all. That means all users, all devices, one website. You don't want to have an English website and a Spanish website. You don't want to have a mobile website. You want one website. You want one thing to update. And as you're creating that website, think about a few things. One, I already said that your schedule should be in HTML, not images or PDFs. You want to tag images so that folks that have sight impairments kind of know what they're looking at. Make sure that Google Translate works on your website. While it is not ideal, it is a pretty darn good translation. If you have a particular need for another language, you might want to consider a professional translation and having a link to it. But for most purposes, Google Translate works really well. And plan for mobile responsiveness. And that goes back to this usability for all. When I say mobile responsiveness, what I mean is that your website should work on all devices. So a mobilely responsive website would look like this on a desktop, on a wide desktop like my own. If I translated it to Spanish, it would look like that. If I was looking at it on a laptop, it would look like this. It would get a bit narrower. I was looking at it on a tablet, it would change the format so that I could easily see the important elements. And on a smartphone, it would look like this. And as I said before, that's really important to make sure that your website works on mobile devices because it allows it to integrate transit into people's lives. Because when I'm out and about in the community, my phone is what I have with me. And if I want to be able to, find a bus schedule or plan a trip, I'm probably going to be doing that on my phone as I'm walking to the bus stop. And many young and low-income people, their smartphone is their only internet access. So make sure your website is mobile friendly. Okay, I take a deep breath. I may just get through this in an hour. Beyond information, I think it's important to think of a few other functions that your website offers. And one of those is engagement. Once someone is at your website, this is a chance to engage with them. So make sure that it's easy for them to provide feedback, to let you know what they think about things. Make sure that it's easy for them to sign up for your email list or alert list so that they can get alerts about service changes or things that are going on with your system. This is a great way to build an emailing list. Include social media links. They can be just the little icons like this, or as this website, they went all in on their social media links on their website. But letting people know that you are on social media and they can connect with you that way. And include customer surveys. If you want to find out what your customers are thinking, what they like, what they don't like, having a link on your website that they can provide feedback is a good way to do that. So opportunities to use your website as an engagement tool. Now, it can also, though, be a promotional tool. Just in its very nature, it is a promotional tool. If someone has come to it and it's their first time there, you want to sell them on using transit while they're there. But even more specifically, if you're marketing to a particular target audience, students, seniors, employees at a particular business park or something, create a landing page for that audience, something that provides them with the specific information they need, and then use a QR code on your materials to drive them to it. So they won't even go to your homepage. They'll maybe go to this landing page and get some really targeted information. The other thing is, once you have that easy to remember URL, put it everywhere. Put it on your buses, put it on your bus stop signs, in advertising, posters, and brochures, every opportunity that you have. Because you may remember, I told you last month in our awareness class that thousands and thousands of people see your buses and bus stops every single day. And so use that as an opportunity for them to begin to know where to find information about you. Just as a funny aside, since I'm actually on time, as I was preparing for this class, I've been working on the launch of the Sedona shuttle, which is a new transit system in Sedona. And just yesterday, we finally got up a placeholder on the website. So I was very excited about that. And I'm hoping that the address that we're putting on everything will begin to drive people to it. So using it as a promotional tool. Okay, so key takeaways, things I want you to walk away today remembering. The first is that the website is the first experience for many new users with your transit agency. So make it as good an experience as you can. Make it easy to find. Focus your homepage above the scroll on the transit user. Answer their questions as quickly and easily as possible. And design for mobile responsiveness so that your website will work for everyone. So that is what I have for my presentation today. And I hope that I have got you thinking about a lot of questions. We have some time for them, and I'm going to turn it over to Liz.
Okay, thank you so much. Wonderful. So now is the time for questions. So I'm going to just change it so that you can all unmute yourselves, but we do ask that you raise your hand. So go to the reactions area and raise your hand if you want to ask a question verbally. And it's also fine to do it in the chat. So we did get one question that we'll start with. When providing information in other languages, is it encouraged to incorporate all information on one website or create an experience that caters to a specific audience?
I would generally say you want one website to work for everyone. You don't want two websites to have to update. You don't want people to be confused by the fact that there's two websites. And that's why I really recommended, making your website, if all of your website is in HTML, it's not PDFs, it's not images, then Google Translate should be able to translate all of it. And that means that not only people that speak one particular language, Spanish or whatever's dominant in your area, but people that speak any language would be able to use your website. So I highly recommend a single website. And I could show one example. I'm gonna.
Yeah, you can close out of that.
Gonna try to get to I'm gonna get to the right place. This is a website from the Verde Shuttle, which is in Arizona, and has a very large Spanish-speaking population. Now, I could use Google Translate and I could translate this, but under How to Ride, it says English and Spanish. So someone can get a professional translation as well as a Spanish language video about how to use the service. Now, it's not a separate website. It's just a separate page within the website that has most of the information that's in text is on the How to Ride page. And so it has all of that information professionally translated.
That's a great idea. Okay, I'm going to call on Alexis, and then I'll get to the next question in the chat. Okay. Go ahead, Alexis.
So we are creating our website in the RTAP website builder that was suggested in another one of your webinars. Mm-hmm. I'm just wondering if that connects with Google Transit or if we could have people that are blind able to have that read to them.
Okay. Those are two separate questions. Google Transit depends on you. Do you operate fixed route service?
We do.
And have you provided your GTFS data to Google? So you're in Google Maps.
Yeah, so we're completely in Google Transit and everything like that. I just wasn't sure if we could get the RTAP website to be able to be read to people.
Okay. The being read to people part is different. If your information is in HTML and someone is using a screen reader, yes, they will be able to read the information on your website. And the Google Maps part is simply a matter of having that little widget, that little trip planner widget on your web page that this just then points them into Google Maps so they can get a trip plan.
Yep, we got both those. Thank you.
Yep, you should be good to go then.
There are different ways to show schedules too, where you can have them on like a Google spreadsheet, and then that just automatically shows. So yeah, there are definitely options with Website Builder. There's another question about Website Builder and being able to create a website with different mobility with different devices. So yes, the Website Builder tool is mobile responsive, and you can preview it on different devices, on your computer and see what it'll look like and how it responds, so that you can design it accordingly. Another question is, if you have your GTFS data and you're on Google Maps, is there a relatively easy way to create a basic static transit map where the different routes are shown in different colors?
I think someone who is familiar with GTFS and has some graphic skills absolutely can do that. I am not the person to give you the detailed information on how to do that. It is definitely doable. And I have created static maps in Google Maps. I know there is a little function, it's a little clunky, but where you can actually draw routes on a map, and I think you can probably do that out of your GTFS, but you probably need to talk to someone with a little more technical skill set.
Yeah, we have, as Selena mentioned, we have a GTFS builder tool, and I put that into the chat, which is basically just a really smart spreadsheet where you put in all your data, your routes, your schedules, also the fares, all that information, and then it turns it into the GTFS format. And the woman who built that is kind of our subject matter expert, and she could probably answer that question for you. So we can put her email into the chat if you have GTFS specific questions. That would be great to ask her.
Regarding the making a map, I will reach out to my friends at Trillium and ask them that question as well. And if I get a good answer, I'll provide it to Liz and she can get back out to you.
That'd be
So
great.
There is a way to make in My Maps, using Google My Maps to do the static routes. And Marcy Jaffe, our GTFS builder expert, can definitely help you with that. And it's part of our additional resources on the GTFS builder website. So good luck.
Yeah, and we can, when we send, we'll send an email out when the slides and the recording are posted from this webinar, and we'll also try to include some additional follow-up information like answering that question that Selena's going to ask, and then also some helpful links and emails. Okay, here's another question from Wild Rose Transportation. Oh yeah, okay, she answered that they will show you the variations, yes. Okay. And the name of the website that had the Spanish page was
verdeshuttle.com. Yeah, VERDE shuttle.com.
Great. Okay, we put that into the chat. Yeah, Remix is another tool, a mapping tool with lots of different layers of census data and things like that. So that's another option. Okay, other tools, other questions. I don't know why this popped into my head, but if you have a website that you feel like needs updating, when do you know that you should just start from scratch? I don't know. I guess it's, you just know because it needs enough work, but yeah.
I think it's probably always a good idea to start from scratch with the design element and think about what it is you want the website to accomplish. What are the questions you want to answer right up front? So let's say you're a demand response service, and you operate, say, a countywide demand response service. So the first thing you might say is, okay, what are the questions most people are going to have? Well, they're going to want to know, where can I go? They're going to want to know, what hours does it operate? They're going to want to know, are there, their eligibility requirements, and identify those key things, and then look at what you have now and see how easy or difficult it is for someone to answer those questions. And if it's difficult for someone to answer those questions, then you may want to think about at least, redesigning that homepage from scratch. You may keep other pages the same, things that you link to, but you may just want to redesign that initial interface.
Right. Okay, great. All right, here's a couple other questions. One is, can you show an example of a good HTML schedule? We fear ours would look too bulky and have too much information to process for a new writer if it were all written out.
Sure. I'm gonna switch out of PowerPoint for a moment and get back into here. Well, I'm going to show you the schedules on this. The Verdi shuttle has a really big, kind of funky schedule because as you can see from the map, it goes all the way from this town, Cottonwood, over to Sedona, and then has a lot of detailed stops along the way. So their schedule has all of the stops on it. And here it is shown in HTML. Let's say we want the Monday, Tuesday schedule. They operate different service on Monday, Tuesday than on other days. And you can see the stops and their numbers are down the left, and the times that it serves each stop are across the top. And if I was in the Wednesday, Sunday schedule, when there are many more frequent service, you would actually have to scroll to see all of this. So there are different tools. So that's one example of a fairly clunky one, but where they've made it work. Let me find a different one. Let's go to VVTA. Okay,
I did want to mention with our website builder tool, if you want, you will have to pay for your domain name, but everything else is free. I don't think that those are too expensive, but we can publish it. It'll just be like a national RTAP .something.org. But if you want your own domain name, you will have to pay for that, but that's it.
Oh, I've got this in Spanish. I'm going, why is everything coming up in Spanish? Because I translated it. How do I translate it back? Okay, so I've still got it in Spanish. Oh, well, let's find a route. I think a lot of their routes aren't operating right now, so I am not going to use that as an example. Sonoma County, that's a good one to use. Okay. Okay, so these are their schedules. So the first thing they do is they offer you the opportunity to download a PDF. They show you the map for the route, and then if you want the weekday schedule, you click, and here is the schedule. And as you can see before, they have a lot of runs, so you may have to scroll to see the ones at the very end. But it is possible to make schedules work in HTML. And it really is preferable for screen readers, and for search engines can then read the various names of the streets. So if somebody searched for transit on Hunter Drive in Sonoma, they might go right to the particular page they're looking for.
Okay, great. National Art, we also have some information about, general, the best practices for making your website web accessible. So in addition to having things in HTML, like Selena mentioned, tagging photos and, providing alternative text and certain color choices, things like that, enough contrast. And so just general practices, we have that on our website, in the website builder section. Okay, another question is, can you share the website that had that customer survey on it as an example?
Oh, that was something, it's not there anymore. That was just an image that I had pulled. That was from Monterey Salinas Transit. But it was, if you clicked through, it was just to basically a SurveyMonkey survey.
Great. Any other questions? Not, I have one. You mentioned the program finder in the beginning, kind of like a demand response trip planner almost. And yeah, what are the options for that you are aware of?
Well, and that basically requires a developer to create. So what they're creating is a database, like a big table that, has the information in it. And then, based on someone saying, I want to go here and I'm here, I want to go there, it looks and sees, of these various services, which ones serve those 2 points. And then if there's other criteria, it can factor that in. So it is not something that someone could probably create, that most transit professionals would be able to create on their own. They would probably need a web developer to help them create it. And that's why I said that the folks at Trillium created that one, and they told me it wasn't difficult to create, but it took skills that I don't have. And my guess is most of the folks on the phone, on the Zoom don't have either.
Okay, thanks.
But I could definitely direct them to the folks at Trillium that created that, and they might be able to give them some pointers.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, great. All right, well, we're still open for questions, but I think why don't we head to, if you want to go, Selena, to the upcoming events, and then we can come back to the workshop. But just before, if anyone is heading out, now we're going to stop the recording and go to the kind of interactive portion. But just so you know about the upcoming events, we do have the 3rd workshop on passenger information. So that will focus on, guides and other more physical materials. And we do have a couple other webinars in March. So building better bus stops, and then one about transit insurance and risk management, and a couple additional roundtables. So check those out. And I think that's it. You can go back, but we're going to turn the recording off. And we do have a couple